Today, I want to talk to you about a few option strategies that I really love, especially because they're omnidirectional strategies, meaning that, they've got a little bit of a bullish component and a bearish component to them. They're great when you're not really sure sometimes where the market is going to go, and you want to be primarily bullish in the market, but maybe you want to hedge the downside just a little bit. You probably want to try some of these strategies. So let me switch over to my trading platform. Of course, I use TASTYTRADE as my trading platform, and let me go put on a standard bullish trade. So what's the most common bullish trade most of us probably put on? We probably put on short puts. So I'm going to use SPY as an example. I'm going to go to the 63-day cycle and I'm going to sell the 20 delta put. Kind of a standard bullish trade for me. I sell a 20 delta put of around 60 DTE. But because the market has been trending downward, there's a lot of volatility in the market right now. The market has sold off considerably, so I want to put on some bullish trades. I think it's the right idea, but I'm also a little concerned. I don't know, the market could still go down a little bit from here. So I want to hedge my bet a little bit. So this short put, I really don't want to do the short put. I could actually buy a put above it and create a put debit spread. Now this is an out of the money put debit spread. So it's a kind of a cheap little hedge. I pay $84 on this put debit spread. And if the market drops below this spread, I have the potential to make $416. So I'm basically paying one for the potential to make four on the trade, but this is a bearish trade, this put debit spread. I wanted to be primarily bullish. So what I could do is I could put on the put debit spread as a downside hedge, but I could still put on a naked short put as a bullish play. All I need to do is the short put on the put debit spread, double it up. And now I have two short puts, one long put. This creates what is known as a put ratio spread. I get a credit of 691 for the put ratio spread. Now, the naked short put by itself, had I just done one naked short put, I would have received a credit of around 775. But remember, I added the put debit spread component of the trade. I had to pay 84 cents for that. That's why the total credit is reduced a little bit to 691 credit, but I'm willing to pay that because I'll give up that extra 84 cents credit to, again, hedge my downside a little bit. So if SPY trades above 485, I have the potential to make a max profit of $691. But here's the thing with the put ratio spread. Because we have that embedded put debit spread hedging the downside, I actually can make more than $691. I have a max profit potential of $1191. Why is that? And that's because of that put debit spread. If SPY trades down and trades exactly at 480 at expiration, I have the potential to realize a max profit of $1191. Now that's a very unlikely scenario. You're probably not holding this all the way to expiration, and it's probably not going to finish exactly at $480, but if it does, you have that potential max profit. So let's take a look at the risk profile of the put ratio spread. You can see if SPY trades above 485, we have the potential to make our 691 profit, right? Our credit on the trade. But if we get into this tent area here, at the top of the tent, right? The peak is right at your two short puts. And that has the potential to make you $1191 max profit. Now, if SPY falls below our short puts, we can still profit a little bit. We keep profiting all the way down. In this case, our break even is all the way down here around 468.25. So we have a lot of runway to the downside because of the put ratio spread, because of that put debit spread component. It gives us a little bit more room as far as a break even to the downside. So put ratio spreads, one of my favorite trades if I want to put on a bullish trade, but I'm a little concerned. If I'm a little concerned, I will turn a naked short put into a put ratio spread. That's typically what I do. Now, you don't have to just do your standard two short puts, one long put ratio spread. You can actually adjust this into what is known as a bear put ladder if you want. For example, let me go back to the table here. Let's go ahead and turn this back into just a standard put debit spread. So one short put, one long put, but this time instead of doubling up this put, I'll just sell another put somewhere lower. I'll go a little lower. So I'm breaking up the two short puts. This is what is known as a bear put ladder, and it has this risk profile. So instead of having the peak, right, the sharp peak, right, then you now have this plateau area, this max profit zone to the downside. Now, in recent years, there's a lot of people on the internet, on YouTube, that they call this trade the 111. I'm not crazy about that name, 111 what? Because you can actually construct this with calls. You can also construct it as a debit trade, a credit trade. Like, it's not very descriptive, but you know what they're calling a 111 is really what is known as a bear put ladder. That's what it's been known as traditionally. Some people will call it a long put ladder. Years ago, TASTYTRADE, the TASTYTRADE content network, used to call this trade, they called it the over easy if you created it with puts like we just did. If you did it with calls, they called it the sunny side up. Old time traders sometimes call this the Christmas tree. Some people will just call it, again, a ladder trade. Whatever the name you call it, it is essentially a version of a put ratio spread. All you did is you took the put ratio spread and you broke up the two puts, so you could give yourself even more runway to the downside. Now, the difference is you're reducing your max profit by splitting it up and lowering the one put. So my max profit now is only $930. How it's constructed here. My credit on the trade is also only $430. So now if I get a move up, I'm only making $430. And if I finish into this max profit zone to the downside, this is only $930 max profit instead of $1191 like the put ratio spread. But again, I have a bigger max profit area. So, you give up a little profit potential to have a bigger max profit area. That's the difference between the put ratio spread and the bear put ladder. Now let's talk about some omnidirectional sort of trades that you're going to end up in because the market has already sold off considerably. Let me go to a chart of SPY. So maybe you sold some puts on SPY when SPY was trading here, and SPY obviously sold off considerably, and you've just been assigned. You now have, let's say, 100 shares of long SPY. Now what do you do? Well, you could just hold on to the shares and SPY will eventually recover. That's certainly possible. One thing you could do, though, especially if you're worried about SPY still selling off while you're holding those shares, is just do your traditional covered call. So let me actually do a covered call here. Let's do a short covered call. And I'm purchasing 100 shares, but let's imagine you already had the 100 shares and then you sell, say, I don't know, a 31 delta call against it. So you're going to receive a credit on the call of somewhere around $960. So if SPY keeps falling, you get to keep $960, right? And that helps offset whatever you're losing on the shares, especially for those that are long-term passive investors. You're holding on to those shares anyway. You want to hedge potential losses, right? You want to hedge the loss to the downside. Now, what happens if SPY goes up? Well, if SPY goes up, you have two options. You can either give up your 100 shares at the 555 strike, right, in this case, or you just realize the loss on the call and keep your shares. But again, this is more of kind of the way we're doing this today is a hedge, right? You're hedging your bet to the downside. If you get that move to the downside, you make a little more money. If you get that move to the upside, well, that move to the upside is really what you wanted anyway, because you have the long shares, right? You're going to make much more on the shares than whatever you lose on the call. So that's one way to play it. Another way I love to play this, if I get assigned shares, especially after a big down move, let's imagine again, I have my shares. Sometimes I will turn this into a covered strangle. So I will sell a out of the money put again, and then I will also sell an out of the money call, turning this into what is known as a covered strangle because I have the shares, I have 100 shares, and then I have a lower out of the money short put, and then I have an out of the money short call. If I get assigned on the call, my shares get called away. If I get assigned on the put, I have to buy 100 more shares of SPY at an even lower cost basis. Either way, the strangle that I sell, I'm going to make $12.48 on it because I get a credit of $12.48. If I hold it to expiration, I'll get the max credit no matter what happens. Either I don't get assigned and keep the max credit, or I do get assigned on one side or the other, still keep the max credit. And if I get assigned on the downside, I'm lowering my cost basis by getting more shares at an even cheaper price. It just makes sense. Now, you only want to do the covered strangle if you can afford another assignment of shares. That's the thing. If this position is still a small position, do the covered strangle. If your position is already a big position, you can't do the cover strangle because you can't take more shares. So in that case, just don't even worry about the put, just stick to the covered call. So there you have it, a few trade ideas, a few bullish strategies to employ sometimes in a bear market. I really love put ratio spreads, bear put ladders, covered calls, covered strangles. I actually use all 4 of these on a somewhat regular basis. Now, if you want to learn more about options trading, and especially my favorite option strategy, which is the wheel option strategy, check out my book, The Super Wheel Option Strategy. This book is available on Amazon. You'll find a link to the book in the description below. Take care, guys. Peace.